Welcome back, guys. This is JE Live. I'm your host, Jake Ellenbogen, and today we are going to be catching up because it's been a minute that we've gone live. We've had some interaction, and I like putting out videos, but I think live is more of my bread and butter. So be sure to hit that like button. Be sure to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. And we're going to be talking about the latest development and how the Rams might actually be interested in bringing back Brandin Cooks. I almost said Robert Quinn. He went to the Philadelphia Eagles. So we're going to be talking about that, what my thoughts are, whether it should happen, whether, there's a point to it. What can be out of both sides, and then maybe a potential deal, as well as maybe some other things. Also, at any point, if you guys have anything to share, if you have a question, feel free to leave that below. But let's dive into it. So, Brandin Cooks, according to a few reports, one was out there, Dov Kleiman. I might mispronounce his name, but anyway, he put out that the Rams are interested in Brandin Cooks. And I feel like the fan base is split. I think Brandin Cooks was a perfect fit for the offense when he was in LA. And I think people forget they didn't trade him because he wasn't producing. They traded him away because Jared Goff had turned him into a $15 to $16 million paperweight. Goff could no longer throw the deep ball. He wasn't confident. As you remember, I mean, it really just got to the point where it was dink and dunk central. So, yeah, that's not going to be, the best way to use him. So they did decide to, move on, trade away Brandin Cooks, give him a chance. And they acquired the pick that eventually became Van Jefferson. Now, there are some questions about a move like this. Does this mean that Van Jefferson could be on the hot seat? Could he be sent in return? I don't think so. I don't think it has anything to do with Van Jefferson. If anything, it would affect OBJ. And if the Rams don't feel like they are contenders in the OBJ saga, if they feel like they really want another receiver back, not just OBJ, but they feel like they need another receiver, then I wouldn't be surprised if they made this move. Wouldn't be surprised if this move actually had a pick and a player attached to it. Don't think Cam Akers, but I actually think maybe Tutu Atwell. And the one that I really think could have Tutu Atwell in a pick, swap or whatever, is a trade that I kind of thought of, and now I'm starting to kind of feel like I heard some rumblings about it. Hasn't been reported yet, but KJ Hamler of the Denver Broncos can be had. Okay, teams are calling and are interested in him. Jerry Jeudy, the asking price is going to be a little ridiculous, but I've heard the Rams might have some interest in KJ Hamler. And if they do get KJ Hamler, they would probably be cashing in on the fact that they like Tutu Atwell, but they feel like Atwell is not quite where they need him to be in this kind of, I guess, narrowed window to win a Super Bowl with Stafford. So in that sense, I could see them trading away Atwell and acquiring the services of KJ Hamler, who has shown you some things. Obviously, Russell Wilson hasn't been great this year, and so it's kind of held him back, but he's definitely shown you some things this year. He's flashed some brilliance, and I think that's a name to look out for. But Brandin Cooks, let's talk about it. Do I like this? I have mixed feelings about it. I love Brandin Cooks. Like, I'm a big fan of his. I have him in, like, all of my fantasy leagues because at the end of the day, I just really like, Brandin Cooks. I like the consistency factor. I'm one of those guys, if you play fantasy football, I don't need a 70, not 70, I don't need a 20, 30, 40 point game out of guys and then a 5 point game the next week. I want consistency, and that's pretty much what Brandin Cooks has been in his career. There was always something. He didn't get along with Drew Brees. Whatever was made up about him, he goes to the Patriots. He balled out with Drew Brees. He balls out with Tom Brady. Oh, okay, he only played with 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks. What's he going to do with Jared Goff? Balls out with Jared Goff until the end. And then now he's once again over 1,000 yards last season with Davis Mills. I mean, when is it going to end? Like, when are we finally going to give this guy his props? I will say this. Cooks has the speed that fits this offense. Cooks has the familiarity of this offense. And I know things didn't end on the best of terms. I know Cooks actually tweeted out about it, how he felt. But I think he would definitely be okay coming back and moving away from the 1-4-1 Texans. Now, why would the Rams be interested in this? I understand there are people theorizing Van Jefferson's knee is not where it should be, and maybe that's why. I think this would be to add on to what they have. Just like I think OBJ is to add on to what they have. I don't think he's going to replace anybody, but I think Brandin Cooks would be to add on. And, I think at the end of the day, I think Cooks does make you a better football team, but to what cost? And that is where the I don't know about this comes in. See, here's the thing, folks. The Rams are a F them picks team. But if you don't understand F them picks, then you're not going to understand why it's important to keep the later round picks. The Rams shouldn't just trade away picks blindly. I've seen a lot of that. They should not do that. Okay? They should not do what the Niners did. Giving up all those picks for Christian McCaffrey was reckless, to say the least. Especially because you've had 7 first-round picks since 2017, and you've hit on a couple of them. And I don't even know if I could give you credit for hitting on Nick Bosa because it's Nick Bosa and he's an early first-round talent. But the point I'm saying, and the point I'm making, is that the Rams draft well in the later rounds. And if you want to get Brandin Cooks, and you want to get Brian Burns, and you want to get Isaiah Wynn, you want to get all these guys, Kareem Hunt, hate to break it to you, but you're going to have to give up your entire draft to get everybody. You can't get everybody, plus there's a cap. So it's not Madden with the cap turned off. This is real life. They can't just get whoever, we want. So I want to throw that out there because I do feel like that's lost on some people at times. Like, okay, you get into the frenzy of trade deadline. Also, another thing, the NFL trade deadline, just to warn you, is not the MLB trade deadline. MLB trade deadline, there's a lot of stuff that goes on. You have prospects. You have a farm system. It's a lot easier to make trades. The NFL, you have to be a little bit more creative because you have picks. That's it. The MLB, you have picks. But they don't even really trade picks because they trade prospects. So it's a completely different thing. Now, what I'll say is this. Brandin Cooks would help the Rams. And this would help Brandin Cooks. But the cost, what is that going to be? That's what I need to know. Before I make a trade like that, what is the cost going to be? I mean, really. So, if you're looking at Brandin Cooks, maybe it costs you a 3rd-round pick if you're lucky. It costs him a first initially, right? So it costs him a first initially, and then they trade him away to get a 2nd-round pick. So it's fair to assume there's depreciation in his value. He's a 3rd-round pick, whatever. So you give up a 3rd-round pick for Brandin Cooks, who's not I will say this right now, and remember I said this, is not a need. As much as I love him, he's not a need. So if you give up a 3rd-round pick for Brandin Cooks, that's a 3rd-rounder that you can't give up for Bradley Chubb. It's a 3rd-rounder that you can't give up for Brian Burns. So this isn't, I don't feel like the Rams are in the luxury position that everyone is kind of putting them in right now. I think they have to make a decision. I think they got to be careful with their picks. And I think at the end of the day, early on, if you're going to trade away a 2nd or a 3rd, if you're going to do that again, and this might be a little unpopular, but I would prefer they don't go after a rental. I think Bradley Chubb is the most likely. I don't want to give a 2nd and a 3rd for Bradley Chubb and watch the same thing happen. They didn't have a 2nd and 3rd round pick this year because of the Von Miller deal. I don't want to see that happen again. Von Miller left. They wanted to bring him back. Bradley Chubb would be harder because he's younger. So, not sure if I want that. But I'll say, with the Rams, they have more picks than people give them credit for. They just got to be careful how they do this because it can catch up. Just because you've been invincible to this point does not mean it can't eventually catch up. You have one bad draft, and keep this in mind. You can get away with doing the F them picks process every year if you draft well. But it puts an incredible amount of difficulty and pressure on the rest of your scouting department. I mean, over time, it's going to be a lot. So you have to hit on every later round pick or most of them. You can't just trade a second and a third every year. You can't just trade a first round pick every year. It will eventually catch up to you. So I'll say when I look at this, I think the Rams are open to trading some of their picks, but I think they're going to surprise some people because I don't think that they're going to they're not going to give up later round picks. They're not going to give up a ton of picks, okay? I'm just going to say that right now. I think maybe they get 2 guys. I don't think they're going to get a ton. So that's kind of where I'm at on this. Brandin Cooks, love the player. He would help. He would be a fit. He has familiarity. He's consistent. He'd have Matthew Stafford throwing him the ball. But at the same time, expensive. He's had injury concerns, right? That's fair. He didn't leave on the greatest of terms, right? They already have Van Jefferson, Allen Robinson, Cooper Kupp, and Ben Skoranek. I mean, they have other holes to fill. So that's the thing, okay? The Brandin Cooks stuff, that's how I react to it. I like Brandin Cooks a lot. But are they in position to get a guy just because it would be fun to have him? Not really. They're not. The next one is KJ Hamler, who I think would be cheaper, who would be trading away probably Tutu Atwell for him and a pick. I think Hamler would make sense as well, but I also, again, don't see the fit. Like, I see the fit, don't get me wrong, I see it in the offense. I just don't see how it makes sense when you need pass rush, right? You're last in the league in pressure rate, so you clearly need pass rush. That's a given. And I would prefer they go out and they get another interior guy for the offensive line. So as much as I like Hamler and as much as I think he would fit, it's the same deal with Cooks. I like both players, but I just don't see that is not the smartest way to spend your draft capital. It's not. So, that's how I'm looking at it, in regards to that. I feel like when you factor everything in, wide receiver doesn't make any sense. OBJ is still up. There's still a potential they bring him back. I think they're just doing their due diligence. I think they're basically leaving no stone unturned, but I'm not sitting here saying, yes, go ahead, make this trade for Cooks, make this trade for Hamler. I think they both would help, but to what cost? And of course, you get an injury in the the wide receiver room, and you ended up making one of those trades, and you look like a genius, right? But at the same time, if you get an injury at offensive line, you didn't upgrade your offensive line. You had an opportunity at the deadline, you decided not to. Say Justin Hollins goes down, he's by far your best run defender off the edge. You're going to be in trouble if you don't make those moves. This leads me to my next thing, okay? I've been hearing this little rumor going on. This rumor going around about, and it keeps getting sent to me. That's how I keep hearing about it, because people just keep sending me it. Kareem Hunt is going to the Rams next year for a 4th-round pick. Okay. Let me just explain this. Kareem Hunt does not make a lick of sense for the Rams. He does not. He doesn't make sense for the Rams. He's got to have a new deal. This would be a rental. This would be a rental for a running back. And by the way, based on this rumor, the Rams would be giving up less for Kareem Hunt than they did for Sony Michel. That's not happening. It's not. I'm sorry. It's not happening. Kareem Hunt is a talented player that can help you in the run game. He can help you in the receiving game. He's filled out. He can break tackles. But you don't need Kareem Hunt. You don't. If you want to go out and get anybody, then go out and get Ronald Jones. He could be had for cheap. He has the deep speed down the field. He's a guy that started a lot of games. Ronald Jones would make sense. Dearness Johnson would make sense because you could get those guys for cheap and they only have to be in a rotation. So I don't think spending top dollar, and by top dollar I mean draft picks, I don't think spending top capital on running backs and wide receivers makes any sort of sense. The Rams have legitimate holes that could stop them from repeating. And those holes are not running back and not wide receiver. I'll tell you right now, they're definitely not trading for a wide receiver right after they just acquired they just got Van Jefferson back from IR. That's not happening. If they get anybody, I think it'll be Hamler. I can't see Brandin Cooks. I think it would be nice to have him back, but I can't see it. Hamler would be probably cheaper, and it would probably be them moving on from Tutu Atwell because they do kind of the same thing, and he's more ahead of him development-wise. And, at some point, if the Rams feel like certain players aren't stepping up, they'll pull the plug on him. They did that with Chris Garrett. I mean, they're not, shy of doing that. But when you look at the offensive line, I got Alaric Jackson at left tackle for the rest of the year if I'm the Rams, and I feel pretty good about that. I think he's played extremely well. I think he held it down last year. He's a good blocker. People forget he started on the same offensive line. He started over Tristan Wirfs at left tackle. Wirfs played right. So I feel like Alaric is good. If the Rams made a blockbuster move, that would be them admitting, we miss Witt. Witt's not coming back. Let's go out and do what the Niners did, going out and getting Trent Williams. Let's do that, and we'll acquire the services of maybe a Laramie Tunsil at the deadline. Tunsil is the richest, I believe it's the richest deal trade-wise that anybody has made for an offensive lineman. Like 2 first-round picks and a boatload of other stuff. I mean, that was a lot. That was a lot that, Miami acquired for Laramie Tunsil. But he is one of the best offensive tackles in the league. The Texans just didn't really make it worth it. And they did bring all of that capital back in-house because they acquired all that, basically breaking even on Laramie Tunsil because they traded all of those assets to go and get, Deshaun Watson, or traded Deshaun Watson away to go and get all those assets. So, I just think at the end of the day, right now, the Rams should not be looking at running back. They should not be looking at wide receiver unless these are like Hamler for cheap, running back, if it's Dearness Johnson or Ronald Jones. Again, they're not needle movers. I'm sorry that you're not getting Josh Jacobs. You're not getting Saquon Barkley. I've seen Nick Chubb. Sorry, wrong Chubb. Okay, they're not interested. Like, Nick Chubb is not getting traded. It does not make any sense to go after a running back if I'm just being brutally honest. Plus, I would rather go out and get Kalen Ballage in free agency and not have to give up a draft pick because then he just goes in your rotation. It's a guy that's had success in just limited opportunities he's had success with them. David Johnson's out there. You ask David Johnson, hey, do you want to come back and play in our, little running back by committee? Carlos Hyde. There are guys out there. I'm not saying they're great. They don't have to be great. If as long as they're not going to be your starter, they don't have to be great. So I feel like if I'm doing a wide receiver, if I'm going a wide receiver, it's going to be Cooks or Hamler. I think Hamler makes the most sense because I think it'll be cheaper. I know Tevin Coleman just got cut. He's just the guy to me. I've been, making content about the Jets this year, following them, and I did not really get the vibe that Tevin Coleman has a lot in the tank. I wouldn't mind if they picked him up, but I just don't think he's much. It's not really that big of a deal. Same with Marlon Mack. It just seems like two guys that just don't have a lot left. So at this point, they definitely feel like, just guys, Jags, if you will. So yeah, running backs, let's stop talking about them, right? Obviously, wide receiver, we talked about their two options. I'll say this right now. Hamler, I like the most. If they really feel like Tutu hasn't hit where they need him to be, boom, Hamler. That is that. I saw someone mention we should trade Tyler Higbee. I don't think they understand that Higbee is having a great year, and the Rams don't have anybody else on their tight ends. I like Kendall Blanton. I like Bryson Hopkins, but these guys have not taken that next step to make me feel like, yeah, you can trade Tyler Higbee. So we move on to offensive line. And hopefully we can end that rhetoric that Tyler Higbee's on the trading block. I know it happens every year, like, oh, the Minnesota Vikings this year. Trust me, bro. It's that meme, that one dude from Watchmen, that meme. It's like, I saw it in a dream. Like, what's your source, bro? Saw it in a dream. My mother told me. That's what that is. It's every year. Tyler Higbee he's put on the block for somebody. I wouldn't rule out, I see there's an A-Rob comment. I wouldn't rule out Allen Robinson being on the trade block. Like, if the Rams, that's another thing. If the Rams at the bye week, Sean McVay went over the tape and he's like, man, I really like A-Rob, but maybe he doesn't fit this offense. Let's go back and get Brandin Cooks. And maybe you replace A-Rob with Brandin Cooks. Maybe that's what they're doing. Maybe you don't even give up a pick. Maybe it's a swap. Maybe you get a pick in return. There's a chance that's also the case. I can't see that happening. I think A-Rob is probably going, he's probably not touchable. I can't imagine they would pull the trigger, on getting rid of him this quickly, but stranger things have happened. Now, moving on to the offensive line, though, which I know a lot of you want to talk about, Alec Jackson, we already talked about. He's fine at left tackle. If they get Tunsil, then that is them saying, look, we're putting the league on notice. We know Andrew Whitworth was number one in PFF. Well, I don't know if they know this, but Andrew Whitworth finished the season number one in PFF grade for any offensive lineman in football. That's how he retired. He literally retired on top. So got to give the guy his due. But what I will say is that if they find that even though they like Alec Jackson and they find maybe he's good enough at guard, then maybe they go balls to the wall and they're like, look, Laramie Tunsil will be a free agent in 2024. The Texans know that they're not going to get a ton for him because he will be a free agent. It's not like I have 6 years of control with him. So maybe you give them a second and next year's second, so like 2 seconds, and you get Laramie Tunsil. Something like that. Maybe you would have to give up a first, but that would keep you solidified at left tackle. It also moves Alec Jackson in at guard. So now you basically get a starter because he's not supplanting Alec Jackson entirely. You could literally go into the playoffs with Laramie Tunsil at left tackle. At left guard, you'd have David Edwards if healthy. At center, you'd have Brian Allen or Coleman Shelton. And then at right guard, you could have Alec Jackson next to Rob Havenstein. That's not a bad offensive line. All of a sudden, all these issues the Rams had seem to be gone because they went out and got Tunsil. Now, is it likely they're going to get Tunsil? I've said no. 10% chance I gave it in my video, but I can't get over the fact that NFL insiders are talking about the fact that they believe that he is going to be available. I don't know about that. But if he is, I wouldn't trade him. You gave up 2 first-rounders to go and get him. And now, you have a decent offensive lineman where next year, if you want to go out and get your franchise quarterback, you can do that. And they got a great offensive line. It could be like a Ben Roethlisberger situation where he just kind of gets implanted behind a great offensive line his rookie year. They go 15-1 with the Steelers. Could be like that. I'm not saying the Texans would be a 15-1 football team, but I don't see I don't see where it makes any sense to trade away Laramie Tunsil. I just don't. I've seen a lot of it, and I just don't see them moving on from him. It does not make any sense, in my opinion. I have been wrong before. If he gets traded, I will be surprised, but at least I'll admit that I'm surprised. Um, so Laramie Tunsil, right? We talked about the offensive line. There, Tevin Jenkins is another one. I think he could be had. I don't know what Ryan Poles is doing. I really don't. The Bears are somehow 3-4. They trade away Robert Quinn, even though they're pretty much in this thing right now. They picked up a 4th-round pick. The Eagles took on money. Actually, the Bears took on money. They gave them a bigger, pick because of that. So, man, I don't even know what Ryan Poles, the GM of the Chicago Bears, is doing. But if he's available, Tevin Jenkins needs to be traded for because he can play guard, he can play tackle, and it would be essentially like Austin Corbett all over again, like I brought up in my video. Another guy that I'm really interested in is Matt Hennessy. He's a pick that they really liked. He started 17 games. They brought in Drew Dahlman in the 2nd round, and now Matt Hennessy isn't starting. He's not playing. So Hennessy's somebody that can play center. He can play guard. He's 24 years old. And he just fits the Rams archetype. This is more of a 296-pound guy, close to 300, but not 330 type of interior guy, which is what they typically look at. So Hennessy, very much intrigues me. Andre Dillard intrigues me for the Eagles. I don't know if the Eagles will trade him, but it would be a rental, right? Because Jordan Mailata beat him out. 5th-year option was declined, so he's a free agent in 2023. He's 27 years old. And then, you look, and I like A.J. Cann, the 31-year-old offensive lineman interior for the Texans. I think he makes more sense than Tunsil because you wouldn't have to give up much at all. Probably wouldn't have to give up anything in 2023. It would be like a 2024 late-round pick. And I like A.J. Cann. He started 100 games. This is somebody that's a plug-and-play guy, 6'3", 320. And you get him under control through 2024. So I like him. I know people have mentioned Cam Irving for the Panthers. He has not played this year really at all. Would be a rental. I like the versatility, although he hasn't really been used as such. Recently the Panthers are 2-5. They've already had communications with the Panthers, so you could see something there. But I think when it's all said and done, and I haven't changed my opinion on this, the Rams don't need a boatload of offensive linemen. Okay, here's what they need. It's very simple. The Rams need one interior guy, and Isaiah Wynn can play tackle and can play guard. I think Isaiah Wynn is the guy they go after. They have the relationship with the Patriots, as I said in my previous video. And I think Isaiah Wynn, it would be hilarious, absolutely hilarious, if the Rams got Isaiah Wynn and Brandin Cooks in this trade deadline, the two guys that obviously the Rams traded that pick that became Isaiah Wynn for Brandin Cooks. Because that's actually possible now I think about it. But Wynn is 6'2", 310. His biggest issue has always been his lack of length, and I think that makes him a better guard, if I'm being honest. And I just think the Rams right now, they got some pieces, and I think they're going to be better coming off the bye. They're not getting enough, credit there. They played a good game coming into the bye against a good pass rush. And so I think Isaiah Wynn makes a lot of sense for that reason. You just need one more guy, in my opinion. And Wynn could start immediately, in my opinion. So I think they're going to, if they decide to go interior offensive line, I'm expecting it to be Isaiah Wynn. The fit is just too perfect there, and it wouldn't cost you too much, maybe a 7th rounder this year, a 6th rounder next year. He is a rental, but that's somebody that maybe they bring back. He's 26 years old. We'll see, but he desperately needs a change of scenery. He knows it, so I actually like that fit. But then the edge, and I'm going to start looking at your questions and everything after I get through this. The edge, if you guys didn't see my video, or if you did, then you know what I'm going to bring up. I really like Okoronkwo to come back in a cheap deal, like, getting rid of like a 7th rounder. You go and you get Okoronkwo. You have a body there in the rotation, kind of helps you out, keeps you fresh. He doesn't have to be the guy, and I honestly think it would be a bust of a trade deadline if he was the only guy they acquired. I think you get a guy like Okoronkwo or Terrell Basham or Ben Banogu or somebody like that to be a depth piece, to be a rotational guy. Maybe Cleveland Farrell could be a starter, but I think he's also a rotational guy. but there are starters that I need you to keep in mind. Obviously, Quinn's off the board. Bradley Chubb is very much alive, here, and I think there's a chance that they end up with him. My issue with Bradley Chubb is that he's signed until 2023. So it's the same thing with Von Miller all over again, potentially the same exact deal, although I have a 2023 third and a 2023 sixth and Cam Akers. I don't have a second and a third. I don't think he's worth a second and a third, although he's having a great contract year. I would be concerned about spending a lot, once again, and missing out in free agency. You have to make sure that you can re-sign him if he plays well. Another guy I'll mention, obviously, Brian Burns. If I could have like a list, if I listed everybody, Brian Burns is literally at the top of my list. Okay? That's simple. That's the guy I want. That's the guy I'm willing to pay a lot of picks to get. He's the best player available, in my opinion. And I know people say he's not available. I think he is. Josh Uche of the Patriots is another guy. I gave it a 40% chance of happening on my, my video. He'd be like a starter. You have him longer, so he could be a starter, but he could also start off as depth. Marcus Davenport is another one that's very interesting, another rental, but I could see the fit there. Yannick Ngakoue and Jerry Hughes are the guys to look out for as well. If the Rams don't decide to go high profile here to the fullest, they could go high profile by name, and Yannick Ngakoue is a huge name that's been traded 3 times. I don't know, man. I think, he's not having the best season, but I don't think anybody in the Colts is. And he's another rental, but I think he'd be a cheap rental. And I think the Colts would be willing to get rid of him. And I think somebody that's already vocal, he's already been vocal about leaving his environment back when he was with the Jaguars. I really think at the end of the day, benching Matt Ryan is going to have some negative effects on that team. The veterans are going to completely lose any hope in this team. 3-1. They are a bad performance by Sam Ehlinger away from losing the locker room, I think. No one's talking about that, but I think that's a real thing, and Yannick Ngakoue could be available. So, okay, the big one that I didn't mention yet, and I mentioned on the video, is Montez Sweat. I don't think the Commanders are training him. I don't think they should. He's one of the best run defenders in all of football, and he's getting better as a pass rusher. I cannot, for the life of me, see them trading him. But if they did, that's a guy I would trade the Von Miller. The haul that they got for Von Miller last year, the Broncos did. I would trade a second and a third for Montez Sweat. He's signed through 2024. You could work on a deal. Boom, there you go. All right. Let's talk about everything. Let's catch up here. Wow, there are a lot of comments. Holy hell. I did not realize how many comments there were. All right here. So we'll start. Okay, I can't get all the comments. So if I missed your comment, write it again if you have one, comment or question or anything, and I will get to it. I'm going to start with, I see here, appreciate you. Who do you prefer personally, Cooks or OBJ? I prefer OBJ. Thank you so much, Roger, for donating. Sorry it took me so long to get to yours. Okay. Matthew, thank you so much for donating. What up, Jake? Great to catch you live. Getting my JE Live fix in. Enlighten me, man. Been out of the loop a little lately. Yeah, so right now, we're about just under a week away from the trade deadline. The Rams have reportedly had interest in Robert, I keep saying Robert Quinn, Brandin Cooks, and, we're kind of waiting to hear on that. They've had interest on him. They've traded for, Brian, they have not traded, but they have called about trading for Brian Burns, so that's definitely, pretty much what's going on is that we're just waiting to hear back on a potential trade. I think the Rams are going to make one at least, and maybe multiple. We'll see what ends up happening. Let's see here. Tunzel won't be available unless you trade. Well, keep this in mind, though. He might not want to re-sign with the Texans. Maybe he doesn't like the direction they're going in, This is where agents might step up, and this is why I think Brian Burns is very much real. I'm not saying Brian Burns would do it, but his agent is the same agent Aaron Donald has. I normally don't get too involved with, he has the same agent, because a lot of guys do. But Todd France could get involved and be like, hey, my client is not coming back, so you're either going to trade him to the Rams or he's leaving in free agency. You know, you could see that. I'm not saying he has already done that or will do it, but you could absolutely see that. So that's something to keep in mind moving forward, is that the Brian Burns stuff about them turning down 2 first-round picks, I don't know, man. You leak that, you better be damn sure that that happened, because if the Panthers leaked that, okay, if the Panthers leaked that to get more, they just also made Brian Burns more valuable in the re-signing negotiations as well. Keep that in mind. When you turn down 2 first-round picks for a player and you make that known, that player now knows. Okay? That agent now knows. They're going to leverage that. So make no mistake about it. You better not be lying about that. That's going to hurt you if you are. Tunsil, Burns is what we all want. Chubb and Wynn is what we will probably get, which is fire. Yeah, the thing about Tunsil is that if you get Tunsil, the best pass rusher you're going to be able to get after giving up that much is probably going to be like Yannick Ngakoue. I mean, it's not, you're not getting one of the top guys. Ngakoue is only 27 years old, so I'm not out on him, having a resurgent rest of the year with the Rams if he goes there, but he's not quite like the other guys, if that makes sense. That's true. That's very true. I mean, I wasn't a big fan of it, but I don't think it's hurt them, right? Like, I don't think it's killing them. I don't think much has really changed. I miss Robert Woods, but it's not like they, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I miss Robert Woods, and I didn't really like the trade, but I think there's some linemen that'll get traded at the deadline. Hennessy would be a very good move, I think. What's up, Matthew? Get back Robert Woods. Yeah, I don't think he's coming back. Yeah, he's just got an illness. I think a lot of people were saying, oh, does this mean it's Kareem Hunt? No, I don't think that's what it means at all. I agree. I think Van Jefferson is going to make a world of difference, but I also think having Brian Allen back, having Troy Hill, having Jacoby Durant, just getting all those guys back, it feels like, especially now Quentin Lake is practicing for the first time since April. You got Kyron Williams getting ready to come back maybe next week or the week after. It's a good vibe in the air coming off a bye, getting healthy, the reinforcements going. It's like, Avengers Endgame with all the portals, Avengers Assemble moment. That's how it feels. That's how it feels. When you get guys like that back, that has to be uplifting to your franchise. It has to make you feel good as a team. And whether they're huge impact players or not, I mean, you're getting better. So you always have to know that. In addition to the trade deadline coming up, which the funny thing about the trade deadline is that for the most part, the players actually can enjoy the trade deadline, because in the NFL, you're likely not getting traded. Players don't really get traded for other players. So if you're sitting there and you're like, yeah, I can't wait for the trade deadline because, we're going to get help, you're likely not getting traded for said help. It's always about picks, really. Sometimes you get player trades. I mean, we got a weird player trade, not at the deadline, but remember that really bizarre player swap, LaShawn McCoy for Kiko Alonso? That was just bizarre. You don't see player-for-player swaps like that. I mean, Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford weren't even a player-for-player swap because there were still tons of picks that went over. But yeah, I mean, it says something. Like, what I'll say is, to my Jets audience out there, if you guys are here by any stretch, Joe Douglas going out and acquiring James Robinson, like, team buys into that. Because now the players, after Breece Hall went down, they lost AVT for the year. Elijah Vera Tucker, for those of you that are USC fans, you know who he is. But, they lose 2 guys like that. And then you come out and you trade for a running back, and you're like, nope, I'm not done with this team. We're 5-2. I'm gonna, that helps the vibe, right, in the locker room, because now it's like, oh, cool, our GM believes in us, believes in our team, believes we can do something with this. That's what you like to see. And I think, with the Rams making a deadline move or whatever, I think kind of instills that belief. And obviously, you have to know it's there. Have to. The goal is to repeat. They made it, like, they changed the course of everything. When they won that Super Bowl last year, the goal became every year they need to win the Super Bowl. That's the pressure they put on themselves. It's not going to be easy, but every year they have to do it. Stud O-line or Burns/Chubb edge, maybe Kareem Hunt. Don't see a running back trade. Do see Kyron Williams in the rotation in 2 weeks, or do no trades. I will take Burns over anybody. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you can't really secure. Here's the thing about OBJ, okay? OBJ is not medically ready. You can't put him on IR. So because you can't put him on IR, because while he's not medically ready, it's getting close to the start of November. You can't sign him and place him on IR because he's going to have to sit out 4 weeks or whatever. So teams don't want to do that, and he doesn't want to do that. So he's going to wait until he is medically ready to go. Okay? And the way he's waiting makes me believe it's going to be the Rams. Because a guy that, if you're looking for anybody that can just kind of swoop right into an offense without having to really learn all the nooks and crannies of it, it's the Rams. He was just with this offense not long ago. This calendar year, in fact, he was catching a touchdown in the Super Bowl. So, it's something to keep in mind. No. You won't have to give up 2 first-rounders for Chubb. Chubb is being a little overrated, I think. His value, anyway. I don't think you're going to have to give up a ton for him. You're going to have to give up a decent amount. Like, I have a third, a sixth in Cam Akers. I think that's probably what you'll have to give up. Maybe they ask you for a fifth instead of a sixth next year, but it's going to start with a third. Chubb is not a second because Chubb doesn't have years of control. Chubb is a free agent. This is a rental, so that's going to play into it. It definitely is going to play into it. He is an option. There's a good chance they trade him. The talk is if the Jaguars beat him, which I think they're 100% going to win that game, the Jaguars are, and they go 2-6, then they're going to trade Chubb, which I also think they're going to trade Hamler. So maybe they put that deal together. They acquire, it's a 2-player swap, so you don't have to worry about doing the numbers, making the 53 fit, because you could trade Cam Akers and Tutu Atwell, and then you can go out and you can acquire Bradley Chubb and KJ Hamler. Obviously, picks would have to be attached, but that's something to consider there. You could see something like that. And by the way, let me just be very, frank here. I don't necessarily think they should trade Tutu Atwell. I'm not sitting here saying, trade him, he's gone, he's bad. No, I'm not done with him. But I could see the Rams doing it. And I've already heard that they're interested in Hamler. And I hate to break it to you, but if they get a guy like Hamler and Tutu's not a part of that deal, he's going to be sent out regardless. Because Hamler would pretty much be a guy that's doing all the stuff Tutu is. But obviously better at this point in his career. So something to keep in mind. I do too, but you never know. They just need another guard. I think they're fine. If they get another guard, they're good. Their depth isn't great. Obviously, they need to stay healthy, but, it's funny because if they do get another guard and then they do get healthy, they get, Shelton back and Edwards back. And if Bobby Evans continues to play kind of like he did, against the Panthers, that's good enough to be a solid depth piece. Then, my friends, all of a sudden we're talking about a decent offensive line. Yep, exactly. Not Nick Chubb, no. Yeah, Chubb won't be that much. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, but Josh Jacobs is also a rental, and he's a running back. So a rental as a running back, maybe you get a sixth. I just don't think you're going to get enough for it to be worth it. I think the Raiders will just take their chances with the compensatory pick. That's funny. I don't know. He is on the block, yeah. I think that's the most realistic right now. You have that familiarity. Ajiro Evero coached him. George Payton's already made 2 trades with Les Snead. The Kenny Young deal that you probably forgot. and the Von Miller deal, so they have familiarity there. Jake, do you believe the Rams won't get any offensive line help, especially since there's a good options to help the interior? Do I believe they won't? I think they will. I think they will. Guys, do me a favor. If you're in here and you're one of the 240 people, I just said if you're in here. You guys are watching this live, and I just said if you're in here. Who would I be talking to? Who would that be directed to? I'm sorry about that. Anyway, you guys, 244 of you. If you haven't been one of the one of the people to hit the likes, be sure to do that. You guys already are on it. I appreciate it. That just went up since I started rambling on. Got 69 nice likes there. Be sure to get that thing up. Let's get to 200, folks. Let's get way up. Really do appreciate it. Let's YouTube know that, hey, this is good. We should recommend this to other people alike. Let's see. Be nice to find another Austin Corbett. Hated losing that cat. Yeah, he's really liked Austin Corbett. That sucked when they let him go. Both the Browns/Broncos should be aiming to recoup before the deadline. Only question is with who? Good question. I don't know. Would they really have to give up a pick for Gordon? I think you could do that straight up. I actually can't believe it. I was able to trade Cam Akers in my Dynasty League, and I got Gus Edwards. So I was pretty hyped about that. I think that was an absolute steal. Jake, I'm kind of convinced after seeing the Rams were heavy on Burns that the offer they got was from the Rams, maybe a 2024 first-round pick and picks equivalent to another first-rounder. Yeah, and I don't think they're done. You know, the Rams could come out of the 49er game and be like, man, even if they win, they could be like, man, that was really good, but I'm starting to envision Brian Burns in this defense and what we could become. And Les, I think you got to go and just give them whatever they need because we got to get this guy in this building. I could see that happening. I wouldn't mind Gordon. I think he'd be a solid backup. So if I'm the Panthers, I'm not trading Brian Burns. I mean, I'm not trading Brian Burns. I'm not trading Bradley Chubb. I'm not trading – because here's the thing. All right, let's go through it, right? Okoronkwo, talked about him. Texans are 1-4-1. Guy doesn't even start. They don't even really use him. I don't see why they wouldn't trade him and try to get any assets out of him. The Broncos, why would you trade Bradley Chubb when this team is 2-5 and they have a chance to go 3-5 if they beat Jacksonville? You have Russell Wilson coming back. Your season is not over. You spent a crap ton of assets to get Russell Wilson, just as much as Deshaun Watson, if you want to be real. So I don't know how you justify trading away Bradley Chubb and waving the white flag after what you gave up for Russell Wilson. So I got to say, I wouldn't do that if I were them. The Panthers are 2-5, but when you look at their roster, they have a decent roster. They're a quarterback away. They'll get that quarterback next year. Why would you trade Brian Burns? Why would you blow this thing up? Trading McCaffrey's fine. The guy's always hurt. And you just got a boatload of picks. So I don't think there's anything wrong with McCaffrey, but I would not trade Brian Burns. Absolutely not. I try to work out a long-term deal. Be like, hey, Brian, we got a good offensive line. We got a really good pass rush. We got a good secondary, good linebackers. We have, weapons. We have, obviously we can get a running back in the draft. And then in addition to that, we're going to get our quarterback next year. Like, why would you not want to stay? You get to be a part of something big, and so it's not a full-on rebuild, and the guy's 24 years old. I don't see why they would trade him, but if they did, oh my God, the Rams stole the entire trade deadline if they get him. Robert Quinn, I don't know why the Bears traded him. I get it to an extent. He was starting to kind of fall off a little bit. Slow start this year after 18.5 sacks last year, but at the same time, the Bears, they're 3-4. They're still in it. You don't think Robert Quinn can help you out? Waving the white flag a little bit, kind of. Josh Uche. Why would the Patriots get rid of him? Well, I'll tell you right now, they use him as a situational pass rusher. I don't think they realize the value that he has, or they have other guys that, whatever. So I think it makes sense to get rid of him. They've already traded Chase Winovich before he hit his contract, his contract year. So I wouldn't rule it out. I definitely wouldn't rule it out. Raiders makes tons of sense. Why the hell would you even keep Cleveland Farrell on the team this long? I mean, he's not your guy. You admitted to that. He was picked by a previous regime 4th overall. And in that same draft, Max Crosby has wiped the floor with him as far as value. So you get what you can for a 25-year-old who was, unfortunately, I hate to say this word, but a bust in 2019. And you move on. Like, it's that simple. Try to get whatever you can. Marcus Davenport. The Saints are in a little bit of a predicament here. They can give up on the season at 2-5. They can call it quits, or they can continue onward. And, if I honestly wouldn't mind them trading away Marcus Davenport. I don't think it's not like it doesn't make sense. The Saints don't look good. They don't have a true quarterback that they believe in, clearly. I mean, Taysom Hill's still throwing the ball. So, Andy Dalton was their starter. I mean, I don't trust the Saints. They don't seem like a really good football team this year. If they want to pull the plug, fine. You trade away Marcus Davenport. You keep Cam Jordan, obviously because he wants to retire there. Davenport, you're probably not going to be able to bring back. You have horrible cap issues that I don't think you're going to be able to bring Davenport long term after the season. So you trade a guy on a rental deal. There you go. You recoup picks. Yannick Ngakoue on the Colts. He's a rental. The Colts aren't going anywhere. They just basically benched Matt Ryan for the entire season, the guy they traded a third-round pick for Sam Ehlinger, who hasn't proven anything. So I don't have any issue with this. I think the Colts would be making the right move by trading Ngakoue. Then you look at Jerry Hughes. Why would the Texans keep him? I mean, he is a veteran presence. He can be a leader in the locker room, but he's signed until 2024. He's 34 years old. If there's a team that's willing to give you a 6th-round pick, you should take that. That's not a bad move. And then in addition to that, Montez Sweat. Why in God's creation, not even green earth, why in God's creation would the Commanders trade away Montez Sweat? It does not make any sense to be able to have him and have Chase Young on the same defensive line. I don't get it. I mean, the guy is a stellar run defender, which is kind of rare to find with guys that are that athletic. You normally see them, they try to be more of the pass rush minded, but he's getting better as a pass rusher. This just doesn't really make any sense to me. Plus, they have years of control under him. He becomes a free agent in 2024, so that doesn't make any sort of sense. Lorenzo Carter, the Falcons. I think the Falcons have been in every game except for the Bengals game. I would hang on to him. I wouldn't be looking to trade him, but I can't really fault them if they do. Frank Clark for the Chiefs. I know the Chiefs are 5-2. Frank Clark just hasn't been it for them, right? Like, I could totally see them moving on. He has the 2-game suspension. He does have a contract until 2024 that is pretty easily maneuvered, but he just hasn't been what they expected him to be and what they paid him to be coming out. They've had guys like Dana that have played well. I just don't really get the point at this point of keeping Clark around. You could probably find, a trade partner and all that. Terrell Basham for the Cowboys makes sense, even though they're 5-2. They are loaded with edge talent. So it's like, why wouldn't you trade a guy like that who you're getting back from IR? It's like you forgot about the guy, and now you can just trade him away and get a pick. It makes sense for Dallas. Ben Benogu for the Colts. His season's up at the end of the year. His contract's up at the end of the year. He's 26 years old. He's been 41 games. He's never started a game. If anybody is interested in a rotational death piece, then, they will trade for him. And the Colts should, because they're not going anywhere. Cameron Jordan, I don't know if he wants to leave, but if a team was willing to give them a Calais Campbell deal, I could definitely see that being in the cards. So that's how I have it with all those. I can't really blame certain teams, but others, I wouldn't trade. You already gave up way too much for Russell Wilson to wave the white flag in Week 8. I'm sorry. I'll stand by that. I wouldn't trade Chubb, but if they do, we'll see what ends up happening. Maybe if you show them in Madden, they'll believe you, Jake, since a lot of people are stuck in this Madden mentality that we can just trade for anyone and everyone for pennies. Seems that way. Let's see. I would really like the Rams to get Daron Payne from the Commanders. Him and Donald will get so much pressure up the middle. That's true, although how are you going to pay him, Any talk about shopping Payne? Yes. I think they're going to try to trade Payne and they're going to keep Sweat. I think they should try to keep everybody, but that doesn't seem like that's the plan for them. I don't know. I could honestly see him getting cut. Yes, please hit the like button. Really appreciate that. A lot of comments, not enough likes. Appreciate you guys. Yeah, I mean, if Payne is okay for day 2, if the Rams find it, I mean, they really like Bobby Brown. They want to give him a shot. They really like what they got out of Copeland. I don't know. I think I'd focus on other, but Payne is definitely, if they weren't able to get an edge pass rusher, I'd like to see them maybe get an interior guy that can kind of change the complexion of the team. That would definitely be somebody. I'm not saying he's 100% going to get dumped off. What I was told, what was whispered in my ear, I call them whispers when there's stuff that I really don't want to report because I don't want the blowback. There's no need. I'm not a reporter. I don't care to be the first on everything. But the whispers that I heard are that the Rams were interested in the potential of getting KJ Hamler. I am just kind of using my context clues to determine that probably Tutu Atwell would be, with a pick would be sent to Denver if that were the case. So, that's what I'll say there. Awesome. YouTube just pushed everything down and I lost my place. We love to see that. Jake, the Panthers kind of gave Burns all the leverage when it comes to re-signing too. They declined 2 first-rounders, so they better pay him as... Yeah, exactly what I was saying. Way too much leverage, and I don't... They're in some trouble. Like, we'll see. I personally wouldn't trade him, but they better get him extended if they don't trade him. Otherwise, it's going to look pretty bad that they turned down that much. My thoughts on James Gunn leading the DC. I was a little bummed, but I'm kind of happy for DC. I think if you guys haven't seen it, I think Black Adam's the best DCEU film that has come out. So I actually really liked it. I like the direction that whole thing is going in. And, if they're going to have James Gunn leading the way, then I think they're in good hands. And I mean, I don't really care about the rivalry. I think Marvel's better, and I don't think it's close, in my opinion, but other people would disagree. And regardless, it's just more content that we get to consume. So I'm not complaining about more content. Don't see us getting OBJ. By the way, thanks for donating, Wildman Samurai. We need O-line, edge rusher, and a running back. I agree with some of that. I don't necessarily think a running back is a need, but Dearness Johnson would be a good pickup. I agree with that. Let's see. Could be. I don't know. I mean, you'd have to imagine on a Wednesday, if you were to acquire a guy on a Wednesday, you could slide him in to play for the Niners game on Sunday, but if you get him later on, he's going to miss the game. So I don't know when we'll see that, but I don't know. I'm expecting that we'll probably get a trade at the deadline. I think they're going to wait this out. We'll see. Could be wrong, but I think we're going to wait this out. What's up, Joseph? How's it going? Yeah, part of me still feels like Burns is very much, that's a real thing. That's a real thing. I don't know. I'm not saying like it's a guarantee that he's a Ram, but I could definitely see them being really persistent in that and then just eventually getting the deal done. They might even add more than they need to just to make sure they can get it done this year. I don't know. I think he's going to be a Ram at some point. I've said that. I don't know if it'll be at the deadline, but I feel like they're going to push for it. I don't think they're out on Burns. Yeah, I don't know. Jordan's my dude. Really like Jordan, but the way... Here's what I'll say, okay? In terms of free agency, and this goes to... You can use this in MLB free agency. Got Aaron Judge becoming a free agent now. There's no such thing as he's out, or they're out, right? Because money talks, and there could be one instance where you're like, oh, they're not the favorites anymore. They have no chance to sign him. And then all of a sudden, the guy goes back to his hometown because all of a sudden that team came in with the Brinks truck. And that's happened. You guys follow the NBA, right? I mean, don't you remember the DeAndre Jordan fiasco when he was going to sign with the Mavericks? I mean, that was like, I'm pretty sure the Clippers kidnapped him, but he was going to sign with the Mavericks, and he ended up signing back with the Clippers in the most bizarre free agency fiasco thing ever. I would never say anything is set in stone. That is the nature of this business, is that nothing's set in stone. Literally, it's so unpredictable. Things can happen out of the blue. Just like how everybody thought OBJ was going to go to the Rams, and I was told he was going to, and the Rams backtracked, and they're like, you know what? We're not going to give up a lot. We're not going to do this trade. The Giants were asking way too much. They were asking for Aaron Donald. They were asking for Rob Havenstein. It just became too much, and the Rams were like, nope, we're going to go to the Patriots. We're comfortable trading with them. Bill's going to cut us a deal. First-round pick, Brandin Cooks. There it is. No one heard about the Brandin Cooks interest. No one knew that Brandin Cooks was going to go to the Rams. And it just happened because that is the unpredictability of the NFL. Things just happen. And so that's why when I hear there is no way that, for instance, there's no way that OBJ is going to be back with the Rams. I don't see it. A lot of things can change. So there is that. Anyway. So let's see. Love when that happens. I lost my spot. Well, they're real whispers though. Nolan, they're real whispers. They're not NFL rooms or rums or rumors. I call them rums because it just sounds even worse. It's not NFL rums. It's not the guy in, Twitter, whatever. But yeah, they're real whispers. I have heard that. Not this year though. I heard that previously that was a thing. I heard they were interested in Kamara a couple years back. Yeah, I mean, they're never going to use Henderson the way we want him to. I just hope that they figure out that he can do other things than run straight down the field and be used as a decoy, but we'll see. Hopefully the bye, McVay was going through that and be like, oh, maybe we should use Henderson in a different way. That is correct. They're not. Pressures are very important. Yeah, I mean, I would not rule out, and this is another thing. I would not rule out the potential of the Rams trading Floyd for a pass rusher. That's another thing that is not being talked about. I would not rule out the Rams moving a player to get a player. I mean, in a perfect world, obviously you want Floyd to stay because of his prowess against the run, and he's starting off like kind of slow because of the injury, but I think he's gonna, get it going again. And he's a good pass rusher. He's not great, but he's good. Typically you want a guy like that to stay and just add around him, but I could see them trading him away and keeping Hollins on the offense, or keeping Hollins in the rotation. And I mean, Hollins is a top 10 run defender this year for edge. So, he's great against the run. Yeah, if they move Burns, that's not going to go well. But, I mean, hey, there's a chance in another sport, there's a chance that the Yankees might not bring Judge back. So, might be some empty stadium there. Just kidding. They're never empty, but you get my point. Yeah, because I think the knee was hampering him, so I don't think that's a surprise at all for me. I'm glad he was able to, get things going, but well, you do need a run stopper. Okay, let's let's not discredit the skills it takes to set the tone and set the edge and be able to stop the run. Let's not discredit the job Justin Hollins does as a run defender. As a pure run defender, Justin Hollins is damn good. But the problem is, Hollins is not a great pass rusher. He shows you some moments. Same thing with Terrell Lewis. These are guys that have moments But if you want to know why Terrell Lewis doesn't start over Justin Hollins and Hollins gets the majority of the reps, it's because of his ability in the run game. That is why. Well, yeah, but Floyd's also great against the run. So, I mean, here's what I'll say, okay? And I don't mean any disrespect because I really did like him, but he was at the end of his rope. Let's be honest here. Connor Barwin. Connor Barwin struggled to set the edge, like big time, okay? Clay Matthews did as well. Connor Barwin struggled to set the edge, and it was really easy to run by guys like that. You know, when you can't set the edge and you can't, basically push the running back inside, and they can go to the outside, they can cut in between. It's going to become an issue. So if you're not good against the run, you're going to get gashed. That's been a big thing about the Rams this year. Is that they are not a team that is getting gashed by the run. They have a couple big plays that they give up, but that's not because they are struggling to stop the run from the get-go. They're struggling to make tackles on those big plays, and they give up 1 or 2 a game. Floyd is definitely not trash. But I do agree with you, JP, is that I would get Brian Burns by any means necessary because I think he would be incredible. So, man, Brian Burns, Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald, Bobby Wagner, Ernest Jones. Lord Almighty. I'll throw one for you. If the Rams want a safety, I'm not saying they would do, but if they want a safety, I think Jesse Bates might be available. I do. I think Jesse Bates might be available, and that would be interesting. I don't think he's a need. I don't, before you lose your mind, I don't think safety's a need, but if they want a safety, Jesse Bates would be definitely a good player for this defense. Yeah, I think every Rams fan wants Burns. I think every Rams fan wants Brian Burns at this point. I mean, you have to know what he brings to the table. You have to know that this is bigger than just this year. If you get Brian Burns, it's not just this year. It's moving forward. You have a 24-year-old pass rusher who's a cornerstone for your defense. And on top of it, let's be honest here, now he's on the same line as Aaron Donald. And then after Donald retires, you have Burns. And you could easily facilitate a deal with Burns because of Leonard Floyd. So, I think, I don't know, man. Because how far apart are the Rams and the Panthers on Brian Burns? I don't know. But that's something that getting closer to the deadline, the Rams might be like, we might have to make this move. Yes, it looks amazing, and the soundtrack, the remixed version of Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, fantastic. I need the actual full thing because I can't find it anywhere. It's a great remix. Mike, I gotta disagree. Bobby Wagner is rated the number 1 linebacker in the NFL according to PFF, and that's what I've seen on tape. He's had some misses, okay? Every linebacker does. No one's going to play perfect. I think he's been exactly what you would want spending that much money. Well, keep this in mind. Josh Allen is 6'5", 260 pounds or 250 pounds. Of course, he's going to run right over him. Let's see. I don't think he's got us divided. I think a lot of people want the same thing. Except the running back. I agree with you. I don't see the running back. I honestly think they have some type of deal in place with the Broncos for Chubb and possibly Hamler. Golden, right? Yeah, that's how you say Gordon. Golden. Nice job, Jake. Hamler or Gordon. Akers must be a part of that deal. Could definitely see that. Maybe that's the stipulation. Maybe that's what we're hearing. Was it Florio said he's getting traded if they lose on Sunday? I mean, man. Maybe that's part of the stipulation. Like the Rams have it in place. Like as long as they lose Sunday, the deal states that Chubb becomes a Ram for the next week. That's funny. Yeah, I don't know the stuck on week 1 nonsense. I don't get it, man. I mean, I don't know. Appreciate you, Felipe. Watching from Portugal. Oh man, appreciate the dedication. That's awesome. And I will definitely keep up the good work. Or I'll keep up the work. Only you guys can tell me if it's good. I have an idea of what's good, but you guys let me know what's good. That's true. Well, why don't we do a little exercise here, okay? Let's do a little project. So we got, let's see here. Okay. So notable edge defender value scores for trade value scores. So we're going to throw this thing together here on the stream. Okay. So let's put this over here. Okay. You guys see that? Is it big enough? I can't even tell. There we go. Okay. So, there we go. Notable trade value scores. So, I'm going to break this all down to you. We're going to get the trade value chart out. If you guys want to follow along, you can just Google trade value chart. Draft pick trade value chart. This was created by, what's his face? This was created by Jimmy Johnson in the early 90s to help when he was with the Cowboys. So, let's see. Draft pick trade value chart. Okay. The point of this chart is to kind of show you what it would take. Would Burns get the deal on the level of Khalil Mack? Okay. Khalil Mack, and notice the 1 star, that is way more than the 2nd star. The 2nd star is the 2nd trade that he went to the Chargers. Okay. Khalil Mack's the 1st star is the trade when he went to the Bears. So to show you, okay, Khalil Mack's trade, 1340. That trade essentially would be, if you're looking at it, because there were picks back and forth and whatnot, the Bears ended up netting a positive 1340. But there were a lot of different picks involved. What that does is that puts you right about the 10th overall selection. 9th or 10th overall selection. So, in conclusion, the value that you're getting from this, because Khalil Mack, it was both teams got picks. So added up all together and then subtracted by how much the Bears took and how much the Raiders took, 1340 points. And the 10th overall draft pick is 1,300, and the 9th overall draft pick is 1,350 in the first round. So Khalil Mack, when it was all said and done, was worth at least the 9th overall pick in the first round. That is completely everything all together, right? Frank Clark, okay? Frank Clark brought home, essentially, would be the 21st overall pick, right? Actually, no. That would be the 19th overall pick. So that's something to keep in mind. All right, when you're putting these contracts together, or you're putting these deals together, that's what you have to keep in mind there. Now, this is what I'll say, okay? Look at the Charles O'Menahue pick up by the 49ers. 18. 18 is a 6th rounder. Okay? 18 is the 6th rounder. And let's see. If we're doing like Von Miller, for instance, Von Miller was a 2nd and a 3rd. So the Von Miller deal, based on where the picks were, came out to be 386 points. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because I want to show you, like, where could this Burns trade go, okay? This is the trade that I've created for Brian Burns. And it might be a little more than it needs to be, but this is how I have it. The Panthers get the 2023 second-round pick. If we're estimating that 2023 second-round pick is going to be near the bottom, right? Because we know the Rams are likely going to be contending for a title again. I mean, at least I believe so. So let's just say 300, right? So the second rounder in 2023 is 300. So then the 2024 first rounder, not including that it's further away, we're just going to use the actual thing. A first rounder would be, we'll just say 600. That's 900 points right there. That's more than Frank Clark got. That's like the second most for edge defenders. So when you factor that in, being the second most, now you try to get up to Khalil Mack a little bit. And the 4th rounder in 2024 would be worth, we'll say, 50. So altogether, that's 950 points right there that they could offer for Brian Burns. Keep in mind, they still keep their 3rd in the second round for this. Or they keep the 3rd in 2023 for this. If they wanted to trade a 2nd, a 3rd, and a 1st, then you'd be looking at this. So right now, you'd have, say, 300. Okay? 300, then 600 for a first rounder. So first rounder in 2024, 600. 300 is a second rounder. And then we'll just say 132 would be about a third rounder. So that right there is going to give you about 1,000, over 1,000 there, right? It's going to give you 1,032. Then you throw a 4th in there. It's 1,000, and we'll say it's 1,010. So they could keep their 3rd. I don't think that they would have to match Khalil Mack. Because as great as Brian Burns is, he hasn't had the all-pro season that Khalil Mack has. Khalil Mack was a Defensive Player of the Year award winner. So that price, I don't think would have to be matched. I think if the Panthers were to trade Burns, they could trade him for a second, a first next year, and a 4th next year. Or they could even ask for more and ask for a 2nd, a 3rd, a first next year, and a 4th next year. But either way, I think he can be obtained. I really believe that. I would not be saying this if I didn't believe in it. I think the value chart is there. I know there's a newer value chart, the 2023 model, which I will check out, apparently by Rich Hill on the NFL Draft Tech. I was going by the original one. So in this case, based on this, you would be looking at, I want Chubb to match this AD. I truly feel like he could be a steal. I don't know. I really do think it's possible. I'm not ruling it out. I am not ruling out that he could be moved. Not doing it. Because, I mean, anything can happen. I mean, what was the Kulimak trade? So, the Bears sent they received a 2022 second round pick and a 2023 sixth round selection. And oh no, that was for the Chargers. Okay. Bears Raiders. Trying to find the actual trade. I don't know why it's so hard to find trade details. It seems ridiculous to me. I'm looking for the trade, but it's not. Maybe transactions? Is that it? Okay. Traded to Chicago from Oakland with 2020 second round pick, a 2020 7th round pick, and okay, so the Bears traded a first rounder in 2020, a first rounder in 2019, a third rounder in 2020, and a 2019 sixth rounder. So basically, I mean, based on that, and I've already done like the notable edge scores. That's like with the Jerry Jones, not Jerry Jones, Jimmy Johnson trade value. So if I'm doing the new modern day trade value, where one pick in the draft, the number one overall pick is 1,000 points, and the 31st overall pick is 190. If I'm going by that, let's see here. So we got a first round pick, a 19th, and a 24th. So that would be 278 and then 237. Okay. If we're doing that, okay, so we'll call that 350. Yeah, I'm doing the okay. All right. So we'll call it 355. We'll call it 355 for the points that it took to acquire Khalil Mack. And actually, we won't call it that because they also trade away picks. So, all right, 43, 55. Okay, so we'll call it 420. That's what we'll do. Or no, 220. Okay. This is incredibly confusing. All right. So, yeah, 500, 555, and then yeah, 420. Okay. 420 points to do this. 420 points. And this deal, if the Rams went after Brian Burns, then we would be looking at, say a pick is 200, right? First round pick's 200. Then you look at a second round pick, which would be close to 100. That's 300. You got to get to 420 points. So a first next year, second rounder this year, and a third rounder would be right around 50. So that'd be like 250 with the new setting. Or sorry, 350 with the new setting. So I don't know. I mean, I don't think it has to be what the Khalil Mack thing was. I think there's a chance. I really do. I think there's a chance that they can get Brian Burns, and I believe that. I don't know. I think he's a hell of a player. Yeah, but the problem is with Chubb, that's it. He plays this year, and you're in the same situation to potentially lose him, just like you did with Von Miller, and you're just giving away picks at that point. If you're going to give up top capital, you want to get Brian Burns because he's 24 years old, Chubb is 26, and Burns is signed until 2024 because of the fifth-year option being exercised. So, yeah, I don't. Chubb would be a rental. Burns would not. No, I think the Rams win on Sunday. I think the better team, they get healthy. They come out of the bye. Van Jefferson makes the offense look completely new. I think that they're going to come out and they're going to play a really good football game, and I think they're going to win. And that means I think the Niners are going to lose 3 straight. Yeah, I do believe that. Yeah. At this point, I don't think the Rams are just trying to trade picks like crazy. I do think they want to get some value out of it. Don't forget, this is the same team that traded for Jalen Ramsey. Like they prefer long-term value. Jalen Ramsey, Stafford. They extended Stafford. I don't think they want to just have rentals. I don't. I agree with you, and that would be Brian Burns. Obviously, it'd be expensive, but I still think he could be had. I don't know. I don't know, folks. What I do know is it's 10:13 on the East Coast, and we are getting to that time where I'm starting to lose my voice. I'm getting tired, and well, I'm glad we did this. This is a lot of fun. There's probably a guy out of nowhere they'll trade for. This is what the Rams do, so it wouldn't be surprising. Well, I don't disagree with you. I don't think Hunt is going to happen. I don't think they're going to trade for a running back. Not that hefty. I think maybe they trade for like Ronald Jones becomes very interesting in my opinion. But I don't see them trading for Hunt. Chubb is definitely possible, and I think Wynn is definitely possible. As of right now, I think they're the most likely. If you were putting Vegas odds together, they would be leading the Vegas odds. Chubb would be atop the pass rush. Isaiah Wynn would be atop of the offensive line. So, appreciate you guys. That's going to do it for me. Until next time, I'm Jake Ellenbogen. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. And keep it here on this channel. I have plenty other videos as well. If you didn't check out my video, I broke down comprehensively. I broke down the offensive line targets the Rams could try to acquire at the deadline and the edge defenders. I might do another video. I might not. I have to kind of figure it out. I might combine, running back, wide receiver, and then maybe somebody else. But that's how I kind of am right now. I'm just trying to figure it out. So appreciate you guys being supportive as always, being a great audience and interactive one as well. You can follow me over on JK Bogan, and I'll be back. We'll have a Downtown Rams podcast coming at you soon, and we will have a Believe in Rams podcast coming at you soon. So keep an eye out for that. Tons of content on the way. We've got to preview the Niners during Niners week, of course. So look out for that. But I'm Jake Ellenbogen. You guys take care, and I'll see you guys real soon.